Be disrupted by the freezing weather too. Today's meeting at Kelso's off, the card at Warwick tomorrow's been abandoned, and the meeting at Wetherby tomorrow is subject to an inspection.
BBC Radio Manchester, satellite weather with Diane Oxford.
Well, it's a quiet sort of day with very light winds, so the weather that you've got now isn't really going to go anywhere. There's nothing to stir it up a bit. But we are optimistic that there will be a slight improvement from morning through to afternoon, so you might lose a bit of this grey weather and slightly brighter skies could come through, but never a great day. Top temperature, 4 Celsius.
Yeah, very good day to you.
Lunchtime.
I'm not the only one.
Allan Beswick.
BBC Radio Manchester.
I am not the only one. I don't care what you say. I'm not the only one. I'm not. I am not the only one who laughed when they were playing that audio, as we call it, recording, if you will, of the bombing of Gaza. Now, I wasn't laughing. It was the chicken. There's nothing I could do. You don't expect it. It was just out of place. Boom, 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 carnage everywhere, and right in the middle of it, I'm sorry. I don't care which way the bombs were going. That was funny, and there's nothing I can do. I know I'm sick in the head, but that was funny. Dear God. There's got to be another piece we could have found. I mean, piece, that's a word you don't use lightly round there, isn't it? But there's got to be another bit of sound. I mean, you know, there's enough bombs going off for us to get one that hasn't got a chicken in it. Crying out loud. Please play the chicken again. We like a light-hearted look at death and disaster. Dear God. And how loud are them chickens? Blimey. They're louder than bombs. Crumbs, that's what I've got to say. Absolute crumbs. Anyway, are you all right? Good, so am I. It's nothing you can do about it. It's gone now. I want my kidney back. That's what a bloke said in a divorce in America. So, about 5 years ago, his wife was ill, and he decided that she could have one of his kidneys. It just so happens that their kidneys were, you know, all right for each other, matched and all that. So he said, well, I've got 2, and I love you a lot, so you can have one of my kidneys. And this perked her up a bit, as it would. You know, she'd spent most of her life spending 3 days a week lying on her bed with all the juices being sucked out of her and pushed in again after they'd been hoovered. And that was that. And then, of course, once she got the new kidney, well, the world was her oyster. And she spent a bit more time lying down, only this time next to somebody else's husband. And that really upset One Kidney Joe. And he said, I'm having rid of you, and started a divorce. And he said, I want half the dog. I'm having half the dog, and half the house, half the settee. We'll have a car each, because they're American. We'll have a car each. You can have 3 of the tellies, and I'll have the other 3, but I want my kidney back. The only thing that could improve that story would be a chicken.
Andy Crane, live at the Lowry.
Any New Year's resolutions around the table?
Yeah, I'm going to watch more telly.
Are you?
Definitely, yeah, because I've missed about 3 years of Coronation Street, right?
One of my claims to fame, I was a carol singer on Coronation Street when I was 7 or 8.
Really?
Actually, I recognise you. That's the last one I saw.
Music, politics and comedy.
Matt Smith.
Who?
Well, that's what most Doctor Who fans are saying, Josephine.
He is 12, isn't he?
He looks it, yeah.
It's always a bad sign when Doctor Who's are looking younger.
Especially as he is about 375 years old, actually, in the show.
Looking well, isn't he?
Your Sunday lunchtime mix, live at the Lowry, with Andy Crane.
If we do not do this, what is the alternative?
Sunday from noon.
BBC Radio Manchester.
A very good day to you. How are you doing? You all right? I'm not a big fan of... I know. I've got a neck, I might as well stick it out. I'm not a big fan of paternity leave. Blokes getting time off because their female partners have had a kid. I know. Yes, I know. I don't remember them sending me dad home from the war when my sister was born. You'll have to stop fighting the Germans, George. Your wife's had a baby. OK, over we go then. And you put a flag up and you say to the Germans, we're all going home because our wives have had kids. All right then. Anyway, that's how it works now in Britain. You get time off. As a bloke, I mean, you know, what sort of a bloke wants to be at home when it's full of damp nappies? Dear God. But there you are, that's up to them. But what? Time off? A bloke gets time off to go home and presumably help out with the chores or watch the thing gurgling. I mean, you have to say, don't you? There's not a lot of interest in a baby. It just lies there in one end out the other. There's nothing of any interest. When it, 5 or 6 years, when it can maybe throw a rugby ball and gurgle a bit, all right. But for crying out loud, newborn. Stephen Old Trefford says, that was no chicken. It was a cockerel. What? When did you last have cockerel and chips? That's going to go down well in Owlett's Chippy. Can I have cock and chips? That'll go down really well. You end up getting sausages. Colin in Shropshire.
Hello, Alan. How are you?
I'm very well. What can we do for you?
Well, the wife was listening to you yesterday, and she said you were talking about do people still do the football coupons?
I was, yes, I was.
Well, I am an avid football coupon supporter.
Why?
Why? Well, it's a bit of interest, and you can make a bit of money on it. It's good fun.
Well, yeah, but you can make a lot more money on the lottery.
No, but I've had won more money on the coupon than I have on the lottery.
Mm.
It's good fun on a Saturday afternoon, watching the results coming in. There's quite a few of us do it around this area.
Really?
Yeah.
This is none of my business, but how much does it cost you?
Well, it's the one we do is what's called a fixed odds coupon. So you can put a minimum of 50 pence.
Right.
And up to a maximum of whatever you want.
Okay. So how much do you spend every week on it?
Oh, 2 or 3 quid, something like that.
Well, that's neither in nor there, is it? It's not a pint, that, in some pubs.
Oh, no, that's right. Then I've got the coupon in my hand.
Oh, go on. So are you giving us do you still have to put all the little X's on?
You can either do, if you do a draw, it's X's.
Yeah.
If you do a home win, it's a number 1. If you do an away win, it's number 2. Now, the line I do is 3,694 to 1 today.
3,694 to 1?
Yes.
And how many times have you won?
Well, I must admit, I've never won that line.
You've only another 14 years,
yeah.
And you've got a chance with them odds.
It's all good. I've won a couple of quid on other lines, but it's just good fun.
Yeah. Well, it's all right. And do you work it out, or do you have, like, a grid and you put the same numbers in every week?
Oh, no. Study the form, get the paper on a Sunday, see what's happened, work it out for the next week. And maybe I shouldn't say this to you, coming from Manchester.
Go on.
But I nearly had a big win a few months ago, and it was Manchester United let me down.
You've let a lot down over the years, don't you, worry, mate? I'm not a football fan, so frankly, I don't care what you say about you.
You don't care. I thought you might say that.
You don't have a monkey's fizz. But well, good on you for still doing them. And whose do you do?
It's called Top Chance. It's an independent one.
Oh, right. So, because yesterday we were talking about Littlewoods and Vernon's, and then somebody mentioned Zetta's, and then there was Empire.
Oh, I don't remember Empire.
No, I don't either. I remember Zetta's.
But there used to be a fella who came round the village, like we live in a little village in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
You know, the coupon man, but you don't see that anymore. I pick mine up from the bookies.
Right.
But they still do Littlewoods in the local shop. Somebody comes and picks it up, but most people do it in the bookies now.
Well, there you go. Well, listen, it's been a joy to talk to you, and I wish you luck tomorrow. Do ring us up on Monday and tell us how you did. Ideally from the Bahamas.
Oh, right. Hey, now, my wife wants me to ask you a question before you go.
Oh, and you wouldn't dare not now. Go on.
Oh, are you the voice of the Churchill dog?
No, I'm not. No, I'm not.
At least you're laughing.
But they're using my face.
Hey, nice to speak to you.
And you, Colin. Ta-ra, mate.
Cheers, mate.
If I was the voice of the Churchill dog, I'd have more money than Colin's won on the pools. 0161 22... No, you get paid a lot for that caper. 0161 228 2255. What about Spot the Ball that used to go with it? Is that still in existence? Oh, all the farmers are on. Steve, who describes himself as the chicken man from Northwich, we just call him Scary. Anyway, he says that was a cockerel, not a chicken. Listen, They all taste the same in Kentucky. William in Stockport, hiya.
Hello.
Hello, William. What can we do for you?
We're going on about the football pools.
All right, go on.
I collect them.
What do you mean you collect them?
I go round to houses.
Oh, you're a pools collector?
Yeah.
Wow, I thought they were all well dead and gone.
No. We're even up to date because lots of calls that I do have a card, and we scan the card on the machine, and all the results, all the forecasts, what they want to do, go in it.
Oh, I can't believe that. What, you carry a little barcode reader?
We carry a little machine.
Fabulous. Because a lot of people who did them started to do them where they were doing the same numbers every week, didn't they? Like with the lottery, as it were.
Yeah, well, we do the lottery as well.
Oh, do you?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know you were allowed.
Oh, yeah. We use the national lottery numbers, but we pay. They don't pick 6 numbers. They either pick 4, 3, or 2.
I'm with you now. When you say you do the lottery, I was thinking you meant you collected for the lottery, and I didn't think that was allowed.
No.
Now I understand.
Littlewoods have their own lottery.
They have their own one.
But if people get 3 numbers right on the Littlewoods lottery, it's not a tenner like it is on the national one. It's 4, 5, 600.
Really? God bless us and save us. It's beginning to sound
if they get 4, it can be up as much as 20,000.
Woo! And how much do they... but what's the big prize?
The big prize?
With the lottery?
No. We use the national lottery numbers.
Yes.
But instead of them picking 6 numbers, they pick 4 or 3 or 2. And them numbers have got to come up.
Right.
So it's not a question... It's not a question of 3 coming out to 6, like it is on the national lottery.
Yeah.
They got to get the numbers right, you know.
Oh, right. Oh, well, a pools collector still going.
Yeah, well, I collect quite a lot, you know.
Go on, how many did you collect? This is probably top secret, this information, isn't it? Business...
Oh, probably in a fortnight spell, about £600.
And is there a living to be made doing that?
I don't make a living at it. I just do it part-time.
Oh, right. So, but it keeps the wolf from the door and that, and you meet all them people?
I meet people, and I go around, and everybody's glad to see you. I think the credit crunch doesn't come into ours because they're more concerned now in trying to win to get rid of
Well, it turns out the credit crunch hasn't affected everybody. There's 1 or 2 businesses done awfully well over Christmas.
Over Christmas period there was 5 competitions, the 3 Saturdays, the Boxing Day and New Year's Day, and most of my customers did all 5.
Well, good on them. I hope one of them won at least. Do you get to do them? Are pools collectors allowed to do the pool?
Oh, yes, you can.
Yeah. And have you won?
I won a little while ago on the lottery. I picked 4 numbers.
On the Littlewoods lottery?
Yeah, I picked 4 numbers, and that particular week there was nobody got 4 numbers correct, so the pool divided into the next one, and I got 3 numbers, and I got 141 quid, you know. So.
Hey, that's all right, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well,
coming back off holiday, it was very nice. Yeah.
I bet it was. Good on you, mate. Good to talk to you. Cheers, William. Have a good day. You'll be busy today, I think, going around doing the collecting. Right, I'm in trouble now. I don't know how to read this out, but listen, it may all go silent for 4 or 5 minutes after this, and then somebody else will be talking. But Phil in Ashton says, cock and chips, that's nothing. I went to the Pong Thai restaurant in Mossley last night and had P-H-A-T, P-R-I-K. And I'm not that way inclined. What do you think of that? I think nothing of it. I think you've probably just got me the sack. But at least I didn't read it out. If you can't spell, then hard luck. I'm not going to read it out. I tell you what, when we were in Beijing, we went into a restaurant and we were so impressed by the menu, we photographed it. If I could do it, I'd put it on the internet for you. But it was conger eel with Wikipedia sauce. I kid you not, conger eel with Wikipedia sauce. Now I know what conger eel is, and I know what sauce is, and I know what Wikipedia is. And we eventually decided that it was conger eel with a sauce on it that the chef made up as he went along. Conger eel and Wikipedia sauce. What was we doing? We had a tea. It was the... Oh, now. The Iron Goddess of Something Tea, it was. Yeah. We had some of that as well. It tasted like tea, now I come to think of it. Dear me, mate. It's 12 on BBC Radio Manchester. News headlines. Anna Dawson.
The Israeli government says a plan agreed by the UN Security Council last night to stop the fighting there in Gaza Strip is unworkable. Under the plans, Israel was told to withdraw its troops, while Hamas had to guarantee it wouldn't smuggle weapons into the Palestinian territory. The first baby in the UK selected to be free of a genetic form of breast cancer has been born and is doing very well. The embryo was screened for a gene that would have meant the girl and future generations of her family would have a 50 to 85% chance of developing breast cancer. And the power failures on the West Coast main line between Manchester and London weren't due to the new rail timetable. An investigation by Network Rails found each of the 3 main problems on the line since the new year had a different cause. Manchester's weather cloudy with some bright spells later, highs of 4 Celsius.
BBC Radio Manchester. 2020 traffic.
Well, thankfully, normal service has now resumed on Virgin trains between London Euston and Manchester Piccadilly, following on from earlier signalling problems between Sheddington and Leighton Buzzard. On the M62, foggy conditions, I'm afraid, still affecting motorists around 22 at Rishworth Moor. The fog's quite dense in places, so do take care. And Albion Street in the centre of Manchester, still 1 lane down near the Hacienda Apartments between City Road East and Whitworth Street West. There's no left turn onto Whitworth Street West inbound and no right turn outbound. Don't forget, if you can update me, it's 0161 244 4951. I'm Cara Banks.
Decongesting Manchester, 1 car at a time. 2020 traffic.
BBC Radio Manchester.
Right, it's getting a bit weird this now, because people are starting to to think freely. Now, I don't mind you thinking freely. It's when you share it with me it gets a bit scary. Billy says, Alan, that wasn't a chicken you heard. No, it was the modern version of a World War II flying bomb. It's called a cockadoodle bug. we ought not to be laughing. This is a terrible tragedy that's taking place in another part of the world. The sound of a chicken during the bombing, that was funny, but I think we ought to call it a day there. We ought to just end it, because whilst there is fun to be had, it's not a funny time for the people. So should we move on? Just put that to one side. It's just I can't think of that audio without laughing. It's just, I'm sorry. That's all there is. And the BBC, well, it's only in the Daily Mail. I don't think it counts anymore when the Daily Mail criticises the BBC, because that's how they perceive their job, I think. They just spend their life looking for things about the BBC that they can have a whine about. Anyway, the Daily Mail has criticised BBC Radio Solent, I think it was, for a joke they played yesterday, which was a lot funnier than one we've just been on, and indeed had a lot less harm in it. But you know the advert where they play, it sounds something like Albatross by Fleetwood Mac. You know, I've not got it. I know, you know what I mean. And then they do that thing. This is not just Christmas pudding. This is M&S Christmas pudding. And yesterday, BBC Radio Solent played the music, and over it a commentator said, "This isn't any ordinary redundancy. This is an M&S redundancy." Well, the bloke at Usdaw, based round here, of course, the Shop Workers Union, he got right grumpy, and you can't blame him for that, because, as I say, there's misery. There's misery for people at M&S, well, 1,200 of them anyway, all down south, but misery nonetheless. But it doesn't stop it being funny, does it? I know people have lost their jobs, but it was a gag, and it was a funny gag. Surely we have to make a little bit of allowance for humour, even in trying times. Isn't that the whole British spirit? Isn't that what we're famous for throughout the world? No matter how hard you hit us, at least some wag will come up with a quip. Surely that's a good thing. Tommy in Warrington, are you, Tommy?
Hello, Alan.
What have you got?
Football keepings.
Oh, go on.
Get on about Setters, Little Woods, Empire. Well, Empire Pools used to be Blackpool. Remember, you were talking the other day, I've just about caught it. The chap who used to give, well, he gave his verdict on 8 from 10 and that on a radio station. Can I name the radio station?
No, probably not.
You do know it, because I think you
Well,
mentioned
it's still probably not.
Yeah,
But
all
go on
right.
anyway.
Anyway, me dad and me brother used to do Empire Pools, and it was Blackpool. That's what he used to come out with on that radio.
All right. Oh, I think I know what you mean now. Horace
That's him.
Batchelor.
Horace Batchelor.
Yes.
That's him.
Yeah, you can mention that Radio Luxembourg, because effectively it's not there anymore.
Well, I thought it was Radio Luxembourg or Radio Caroline, one of the two.
Well, Radio Caroline's not there either, so we'll be all right with that. But no, it was Radio Luxembourg.
Radio
Horace
Luxembourg
Batchelor.
it was, yeah. Well, we used to listen to on a Sunday night when I was a kid, and my dad used to get the football for the following week every Sunday night off him. I've just been in the betting shop, and Zetta's is still going.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Isn't that amazing?
It is. Honest, I could have brought one down with me. I've just got me little woods now. I do little woods every week.
Yeah.
£1.25 a line.
£1.25 a line? Oh, I know now. Right, yeah, a line of... Yeah, and you have to predict... 8 from 10, right.
And
because you can pay a bit more and do 8 from 12, can't you?
Yeah, I know that. But on the other side, you get a line of 8 from 11. You get that free.
Yeah.
That's on the right-hand side.
All right.
Or betting shop is the best.
And have you ever won?
At the betting shop, I always back 2 2s.
2 2s?
Yeah. Like Berry's going to play Barnet on Saturday.
Yeah.
If you put that down, £2 2 2, and just say Everton 0 2 2 and a pound double, and the both of them come up, you get £285.
Well, it sounds absolutely fabulous, but you do realise I haven't a clue what you just said.
Well, you're Warrington, see.
I don't think that's what's holding me back. I think it's
the rugby.
Yeah. I've never bet on rugby for years. I did as a kid, very small boy. I must have been 11 years of age or thereabouts. I won £100 on the Evening Chronicle prediction because it was an handicap, the Evening Chronicle Rugby League handicap, and I won £100. That'd be back in the late 1950s. Only, I think 9 of us won it, so we only got about £11.50 each. But I did buy a leather jacket, or an imitation leather jacket with the money. So
it would be.
It's quite a lot of money then.
Yeah.
But the £100, I think I could have probably retired 5 years before I started work. Good on you, Tommy. Have a good one, mate. Oh, sorry, go on. Have a belter.
No, okay.
Yeah, ta-ra now. That got a bit confusing, didn't it? We stay in Warrington. I don't know what we've done to deserve that, but it's a great honour to talk to Bernard. Hiya, mate.
Hello, Alan. How are you doing?
I'm all right.
I'm good. It was just yesterday I heard on the news that Mike Tyndall, you know of him?
I do know of him, yeah.
Going out with Zara, you know I was...
Zara Phillips, yes.
Yeah. Apparently he's been done for drink driving. 3 years he's been given.
He has, yeah, 3 years ban.
Now, if me and you was drink driving, and you must know someone who's been done for drink driving, don't you?
I think I probably do, yeah.
Yeah, and what severity of a fine have they got, you know? Yeah.
Well, it varies, but he's been done before, hasn't he? That's the problem with him.
3 years fine he's got, so he must have been well over the limit.
No, he wasn't that far over the limit, to be honest, no.
Right.
His problem, I suppose, is that he's previously been banned from driving for drink driving, and the magistrates presumably took a dim view of the fact that he's there again.
Do you know goaded me today when he was coming? Did you see any news last night of it? No.
Go on.
He come out of court smirking.
Go.
If I never speak to you again on the radio, I swear on my kids' lives. He come out of that courtroom. Oh no, this is how annoyed I am. He come out of that courtroom smirking.
What do you mean by smirking? I always wondered about this. What do you mean by smirking?
He had a big grin on his face. What, is that not the same as smirking?
Well, I'm not sure, because smirking implies some kind of disregard for those around. I mean, I don't want to defend drink drivers, because frankly I can't bear them. And even the circumstances of his, because he was actually convicted of being over the limit, but it was 11 hours after he'd been drinking, and there was also medical evidence presented to court saying that his liver cannot process alcohol at the usual speed. But even so, as I say, I'm not making excuses.
Doesn't stop him wrecking champers and all the rest of it, does it? But
it doesn't stop him. But it may well be that. I mean, let's not get into the detail of it. But it may well be that he thought, having spent a night asleep, he thought he was clear now. And the argument put by the scientist that he employed was, the medical scientist he employed, was that if it had been anybody else, he would have been clear. But his liver, didn't operate as efficiently with alcohol as others do, and so it was still in his system. I'm not defending him, but that idea that he came out of court smiling, when you step out of court, or anywhere else for that matter, and you see hundreds of press photographers and anything else, and you just think, there's a war going on in the Middle East, and here's a bloke done for drink driving. And
have you lot nothing better else to do than chase people like me?
Yeah, had it been Allan Beswick or Bernard in Warrington, the press wouldn't have been there. It's just that he's playing rumpy-pumpy with a member of the royal family.
He can find money to get a scientist to check out his liver. And he can pay for all his champagne and all that. Why couldn't you afford a taxi the next morning?
Well, he may be... Well, for a start...
And here's the best of it. Me and you now will be paying for his chauffeur to be chauffeured about, as it were.
Well, how do you work that out?
Well, she'll say to him, "You're coming over to my place. Don't worry."
Well, they live together. Her place is his place.
Okay, Mammy'll foot the bill.
She won't. Listen, your view of the royal family is a bizarre one. The royal family is the tightest family in Britain. They wouldn't give a door a bang.
Alan,
I'm telling you. Listen, the royal family, they're famous for it. They are as tight as a duck's bum. They, honestly, they are. Some people see this as a criticism of them. They are mean, the royal family. Her Majesty is a skinflint.
All right, okay.
And good luck to her. So I don't think Zara Phillips will be paying, but he's a wealthy man.
Just a quick one. If you can, you're a media man. You're in the media, so if you can go on YouTube or find out a clip from last night's TV news, ITV News or BBC One News, and you'll see him coming out to that court, and mark my words, he was smirking.
All right, mate. Well, good on you. That obviously caused you great offence and understandable. Good on you, mate. Mike Tyndall, who you may well have garnered from that if you haven't seen it in the news, has been banned for 3 years for drink driving. He was found to be... I think it was about 10% over the limit. I don't remember the exact figure. I just remember in my mind that's about 10% over the limit. And I have no defence to put for him, none whatsoever. And given that it was a second occasion that he was over the limit, or at least the second occasion he was caught over the limit, frankly, I don't think the courts have any obligation to be sympathetic, whatever the reason. And 3 years for drink driving... serves the beggar right. A couple of years in pokey would have served him right as well. I'm sorry, I don't have any defence for him. You just heard the things that were said on his behalf, in that with any other person he wouldn't have been over the limit. But the obligation is on the drinker and the driver. The obligation is on them. Now here's a prediction. I may well get done for speeding. I try not to speed, but occasionally I'm a bit lazy and I do. I try not to jump the lights. I'm a bit lazy, and occasionally, having had a good look, I do. I'm not the best driver on earth. Of that, I am absolutely certain. And I make mistakes when I'm driving. But I will never, 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 ever be caught drink driving. Never. Do you know why? It's so easy to guarantee. I do not drink and drive, period. Now, I've got personal reasons for that, but I do not drink and drive. And so I'll never get done for it. And that's dead easy. The day before, he started drinking at lunchtime. Good luck to him. He had a few beers. Then he had, I don't know why they bothered telling us this, then later in the evening he had 7 glasses of champagne. Frankly, I wouldn't have 7 glasses of champagne on party night, but there you are. He had 7 glasses of champagne. And then he had a vodka and Red Bull. clearly, because he didn't want to sleep that night. And then got up the next day and at 11 o'clock was driving and found to be over the limit. A scientist said that he would have been under the limit had his body operated the same way as everybody else's. He's got a slightly dicky liver in that respect, and therefore it didn't dispose of the alcohol as quickly as it would have done for others. Tough titty, tough Tyndall. As far as I'm concerned, the responsibility is on him, nobody else.
Lunchtimes belong to Beswick.
Allan Beswick.
BBC Radio Manchester.
Right, you're all getting in on the act now. There seems to be a determination abroad in 2009 to get Beswick sacked. I read it out. They don't come round your house. They come round mine. It's me. But anyway, here we go. David in Sale says, these are not just redundancies. These are slow roasted with a drizzle of compensation M&S redundancies. Oh, dear, dear, dear. I think I saw that a few days ago, says David. I can't remember if it was the BBC News or if I was having a thick day and watching ITV. They'll not thank you for that. 0161 228 2255. Here we go. Here's another one. This is a text. Lovingly wrapped in a nice creamy white envelope with gorgeously detailed fine gold writing and a first-class stamp. This isn't just any P45. It's a Marks and Spencer's P45. You are. It's a plan. Obviously, there's been a meeting. Why, that's what's happened whilst I've been in Beijing, isn't it? You've had a meeting, you've all got together in a phone box somewhere, and you've had a meeting and you've decided, let's send in stuff that'll get Beswick sacked. It seems harsh. I have to say I can't blame you, but it does seem harsh. Dearie, dearie me. Oh, it's not helped by me laughing, is it? It's just not helped. Alan, this is Kevin, a woman was recently convicted for taking £16,000 worth of scratch cards for an employer over a period of some months. She only won a couple of 50-quid prizes. This should give you some idea of your chances of winning. The interesting thing is that she was charged with stealing £16,000, whereas she took cards costing pence to print. Her employer was only out of pocket for the cost of print, plus her winnings. You can't have stolen from you something you never had. Here lies the case for the defence, Your Honour, says Kevin. That is an interesting thought, isn't it? It depends on where the employer, where they were stolen from, if you will. If they were stolen from the printer, then okay, they're only the cost of printing and the prizes. If they're from the operator of the lottery, then once again, I suppose their face value is £1, but their value is the cost to him, plus the 250-quid prizes, or whatever number of 50-quid prizes it was. But if, of course, they were stolen from the retailer, then the retailer has lost £16,000 worth of takings, because those are cards that will not be sold. Now, the argument could then be made, well, they sold other ones, and so it was only the cost to them that was stolen, not the potential income from them. So it starts to get tricky, but I suspect the cost to them is considerably greater. Well, I know the cost to the retailer is considerably greater than the cost of production, because they have to pay, if they were Camelot tickets, then they have to pay Camelot a certain rate for the cards. So it's infy-bimfy, but the woman stole 16,000 things from her employer. I think the only time that should be in any way poo-pooed is if it was 16,000 sheets of toilet paper, which could be about 55 rolls. I've not done the exact calculation, but yeah, if you steal from your employer, even if you steal little bits over a long time, you deserve to be punished. And she was. She spent months stealing scratch cards. One presumes if she'd won the million, she'd have told her employer where he can stick the rest of them. Or would she, like all gamblers, have stuck around to try and win some more? 0161 228 2255. If you want to pay and have a chat, you can do so. You don't have to pay much, because we ring you back. If you want to do it entirely for free, then all you have to do is email radiomanchester@bbc.co.uk. And I'm not going to try and guess at what it costs to send a text. I've only sent 3 in my life, one of which was from the Great Wall of China, saying, "Hi, I'm on the Great Wall of China." And I pressed send, and it came back unsendable. God alone knows why, and frankly, I'll not be losing much sleep trying to find out. 0161 228 2255. Right now, it's just gone 20 to 1, and we have, of course, BBC Radio Manchester News headlines with Anna Dawson.
The Israeli government says a plan agreed by the UN Security Council last night to stop the fighting in Gaza is unworkable. Under the plans, Israel was told to withdraw its troops, while Hamas had to guarantee it wouldn't smuggle weapons into the Palestinian territory. The first baby in the UK, selected to be free of a genetic form of breast cancer, has been born and is doing very well. And an investigation by Network Rails found each of the 3 main problems on the West Coast main line since the new year had a different cause. The power failures caused massive disruption between Manchester and London earlier this week. Manchester's weather cloudy with some bright spells this afternoon, highs of 4 Celsius.
BBC Radio Manchester 2020 traffic.
So if you're travelling on the M60 clockwise, there's a lane closed on the entry slip because of a broken down lorry at junction 5 Princess Parkway. Lane 1 of the slip's closed, although traffic seems to be coping fairly well. Matrix signs set to 50 miles per hour. We're still seeing foggy conditions on the M62 on the tops over the Pennines, around 22 at Rishworth Moor. But thankfully, everything back to normal on Virgin trains between Manchester Piccadilly and London Euston. Don't forget, though, if you can update me, it's 0161 244 4951. I'm Cara Banks.
BBC Radio Manchester Sports with Mark Elliott.
The weather's still affecting sport up and down the country, but there's good news for Sale Sharks fans. Tonight's game at Edgeley Park against Premiership leaders London Irish is definitely on. There'll be all the build-up and full commentary in Manchester Sports tonight from 7. As far as the weekend's football's concerned, Portsmouth say they're confident the game against Manchester City at Fratton Park will go ahead. They don't have undersoil heating, but they have hot air blowers on the pitch to combat the expected overnight temperatures of -4 Celsius. It has just been confirmed that Stockport's game at Swindon is off. The clubs have agreed to reschedule it for Tuesday night at the county ground. There's a pitch inspection at Oldham this afternoon to determine if the match with Hartlepool goes ahead, but Bury's game against Barnet is on after a pitch inspection at Gig Lane. Racing continues to be disrupted by the freezing weather. Today's meeting at Kelso's off, the card at Warwick tomorrow's been abandoned, and the meeting at Wetherby tomorrow is subject to an inspection. Well, away from the weather, Mark Hughes has said he won't panic after having bids for 3 new players turned down. Roque Santa Cruz, Craig Bellamy and Scott Parker. And it's reported he'll need to offer £12 million or more to persuade Newcastle to part with goalkeeper Shay Given. Hughes says he wants to sign players he can rely on.
Managers will always go with players that they feel they can trust, players that they've obviously had experience of and understand not only their technical ability, but obviously their character and the way that they work on a daily basis, and certainly the players that you just mentioned fall into that category.
And the Blackburn manager Sam Allardyce has told City to blow us out of the water if they want to sign Roque Santa Cruz. It's believed the second offer for him from City was around £15 million. That was, of course, rejected. Well, the one signing they have made, Wayne Bridge, has warned fans that success won't be instantaneous. The former Chelsea defender moved to Eastlands for £12 million last week and has been impressed with what he's seen so far.
The owners have took over and it's exciting times. Obviously, even at Chelsea, you know, it's slow. It's not going to happen overnight. Players are come and go. And I'm just glad to be part of it, and I know that from what I'm hearing from the staff and obviously the boss, you know, everyone's heading in the right direction.
Rio Ferdinand is fit to return to the Manchester United side for Sunday's visit of Chelsea. He's been back in training this week after missing 4 matches with back spasms. Patrice Evra should line up alongside Ferdinand after missing the same games through suspension. And Cristiano Ronaldo is fit to play despite yesterday's car crash close to Manchester Airport. There'll be no Carling Cup hangover, according to the midweek captain, Nemanja Vidic. United produced arguably their worst performance of the season when they lost 1-0 at Derby on Wednesday, but with Chelsea the visitors, Vidic says there's no problem about motivation.
I think we are not so disappointed. Of course, we can learn from this game, but in the Premier League it's going to be different game. We're looking forward. We know what it means for us, that game, for both teams. It's going to be a great game and we're going to be ready.
The Wigan boss, Steve Bruce, says he's hoping there won't be any administrative hold-ups with new signing Hugo Rolega. The 23-year-old Colombian international has signed from Mexican side Necaxa.
We've agreed terms with the boy, we've agreed terms with the club. He does fly in next week. We go to the work permit on Monday in Manchester. That is the next hurdle we've got to overcome. We hope that that's not going to be a problem because he is a very, very good player. He's at the right age, an international player, and if he comes, then I'm sure he...
Steve Bruce disappearing there. On to other news. Rotherham United have signed the Stockport midfielder Jason Taylor on a free transfer. He's signed a 2.5-year contract. The older midfielder JP Kalala is on the move again. The Democratic Republic of Congo international has returned to Grimsby on loan until the end of the season. Striker Martin Gritton's left Macclesfield to join League Two rivals Chesterfield. The 30-year-old who joined the Siltmen in 2007 scored 16 goals in 56 games. He signed a 2.5-year contract at Saltergate. Well, Stockport's guaranteed a finalist in the World Darts Championships at Lakeside. In the quarter-finals yesterday, Tony O'Shea caused an upset by knocking out favourite Gary Anderson, and Darryl Fitton beat Scott Waite. The two men now face each other in the semi-final. They're great friends. Fitton was best man at O'Shea's wedding, but they don't think their match will divide their hometown.
I don't think it will be split. It's not like that. The fans in Stockport are not like that.
We've got the same bunch of friends involved in football and darts, so they'll be supporting the both of us, and whoever wins, whoever loses, we'll get the same support anyway.
Under cricket, the New England Test captain Andrew Strauss is meeting the selectors to discuss whether he'll also lead the one-day side. He hasn't been part of the one-day squad for nearly 2 years. Defending champion Andy Murray goes for his 4th win in a row over Roger Federer when they meet today in the semi-finals of the Qatar Open Tennis.
Can we have a bit more of Steve Bruce? I think he's still going.
The next live action on the Northwest's biggest sports station.
There's full match commentary as Sale Sharks welcome league leaders London Irish to Edgeley Park tonight. Tune in for all the build-up in Manchester sports from 7.
BBC Radio Manchester.
Aye, all right. It's just gone 1:45. Terry in Heywood. Hiya, Terry.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir. What have you got? Go on.
Basically, I was listening to your pools thing and all the coupons and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And over the last few years, I've been lucky enough to go to an island in the Caribbean where a certain chap of a certain family, I shouldn't mention names, but it rhymes with gangster, but I'm sure he isn't a gangster. The wealth that these guys earn and pulled in.
I know what you mean, yes. I know what you mean, yeah.
And which is fair enough, it was a legitimate business and everything. And, But like I said, I've had the good luck and whatever to go over there. But it took me back, basically, when you were talking about it, when the old fella, my dad, he won about £340 on the pools, Burnhams, as was.
Yeah.
And I always remember him coming in and chucking it up in the air, and as young, me and my 2 brothers were jumping for joy. And my mother, she bought a nice big new sofa for us all to sit on. and got rid of the old linoleum and put a carpet down, which was grand stuff. And they were great days. But about 10 years ago, I was in Barbados on the west coast, and this Mr. So-and-so, nice fella, he'd knocked me say hello. He was sat there, the sun was going down, he had a rum punch in his hand, but he looked absolutely miserable for some reason. And I couldn't understand it. And this place, he had it purpose-built, and it's fantastic. But we were there, funny, for our 25-year anniversary, me and the missus. And we walked past it, and he's passed away, this chap. But the place looked drab and miserable, and it just looked sad.
Yeah, go on.
But his parrot was still there.
The parrot was still there. They live forever, don't they, them things?
Blue the parrot was still there, and the guy who's running it. But the place was empty, there was nobody there. It's just like a shell. You're just thinking, what's going on there, you know?
Well, the family you're talking about is the Sangster family, and I think originally they made them. They were Vernon's pools, weren't they?
They were, yeah.
And I mean, they've not been what we might call. They've had a few tragedies in their life, in their family, as it were. You know, in many families, there's a fly in the ointment. The Moores family, who were the big ones, of course, they were Littlewoods, and all kinds of things called Littlewoods were Moores, and they did awfully well, and I think had a fairly easy time of it by comparison. But yeah, I remember one of the young sangsters dying in a road accident, driving his flash car. A good few years ago now, and you just thought, you know, I wonder. Yeah. There isn't a protection against this, is there? There just isn't. No. But the man you're talking about, he died in 2004. That was Robert Sangster, died in 2004. Sure. Yeah, it was. I
know he was a very good benefactor to all sorts of charities.
Yeah, they did all sorts. The others do as well. The others did. The Moores family did a lot as well. But yeah, I mean, you know, what do you say? They had a bit of tragedy in their lives.
Yeah, I was just put it in comparison, like 55p for, you know, like 12 dots on a coupon, and then £345, and then, you know, we're all singing and dancing, and then, you know, and then you're walking up on the coast of the beach that millionaires and billionaires living on, and they look absolutely miserable.
Well, I said it yesterday, you know, you can be miserable whether you're rich or poor, but it's a lot easier when you're rich. It's a lot less painful. Good on you, mate. Good on you. There you are, Tales of the Caribbean and the Sangster family, Robert Sangster. And Robert Sangster didn't start the business, he inherited it from his dad. The Moores, I remember reading about, was it John Moores? I think it was. We've now got a university named after them in Liverpool. But he started up the business with his cousin, I think, in the 20s or something like that. And then it was suspended during the war because there was no football, and then it came back after the war and went on to be huge, absolutely huge, because of course we all have the desire or think life would be a lot easier if we were rich. And frankly, I think it's probably true. I don't know, but it's certainly a lot easier than being poor and miserable, isn't it? But there you are. But anyway, Robert Sangster, so there, on his Caribbean island. It's all right for some. What's that phrase? Nice work if you can get it. I have a great admiration for people who build up a business from nothing, who build wealth from nothing, provided they do it honourably and fairly. I mean, there are one or two big business people who've done it in entirely different ways, but some people do it from the sweat of their own brow, and they're to be applauded. The thing that I find weird is that they rarely spend it. They build it all up, and they don't spend it. And there is this thought, isn't there? The aristocracy used to use a phrase of insult against people who made their money in trade. Second-generation trade. Well, they're the people who inherit the money from their hard-working parents. But it's the next generation, the third generation, who generally spend it all. It doesn't happen in our house, I assure you.
Eamon and Diane.
It's about you.
So what was for tea in your house last night?
I made beef stew and Herbie dumplings.
Did you put lettuce in, you know, all leftover salad?
No.
Nothing extra that. Old lettuce.
Eamon and Diane.
It's about Manchester.
I was shopping in Affleck's Palace before it was Affleck's Palace.
Before it was fashionable. Why does that not surprise me?
It used to be called Affleck and Brown.
It's about Eamon and Diane.
This is a feast for the taking.
Eamon O'Neill, Diane Osprey.
Back Monday morning at 6.
BBC Radio Manchester.
Lots of people doing the joke about the famous footballer, Mr. Ronaldo, and his incident yesterday, which we brought to you. Of course, we were first with the news, as they say. I'll do the gag and then it's out the way. Frankly, I don't quite understand it, but we'll do it anyway. I understand that when he crashed, the car rolled 10 times, span on its roof for 3 full rotations, and Ronaldo said it wasn't his fault, as the wall wasn't 10 yards back. It's got something to do with taking penalties and all the rest of it. That's fine. Thank you for that from Steve, and at least Gary in Failsworth... He sends a note that is entitled Inappropriate Jokes. So that's all right. This all come out the chicken. I know. Outrageous. 0161 228 2255. If you want to join us, that's fine. Just pick up your phone and have your say. It is so easy. This is quite a long email from Daniel. I wonder. Well, we'll kick it off and see if I can précis it as I go along. Over recent weeks, I've been watching many crime programmes dealing with issues ranging from antisocial behaviour to more serious crimes. In particular, I watched an episode of Ross Kemp on gangs, which tackled the issue of gang rivalry in Liverpool. This episode was particularly disturbing as it showed young teenagers with access to firearms with absolutely no conscience about using them. Whilst watching the programme, I couldn't help wondering what kind of upbringing these teenagers had had, which brought them to the point where they thought it was acceptable to pick up a gun and shoot someone dead. I'm sure you'll agree, teenagers do not one day decide criminality's the way for me. I believe this starts a lot earlier on in life with a lack of discipline at its core. If a child's left to its own devices and goes unpunished for its actions, by human nature it will push the boundaries of what is acceptable. This is how we learn in life, and our teenage years are amongst the most important when developing our morals. I believe that if more action is taken with problematic children at an earlier age, then this will decrease the likelihood of them becoming a serious problem later on in life. Many parents of teenage criminals complain that their children are beyond control, which I believe is true, says Daniel. But had these same parents addressed the issues much earlier on, then their children may not be turning out to be wrong-uns. I think what's needed is to make parents more responsible for the actions of their children from an early age, forcing parents to face up to parenting and not allowing them to take the easy option and sit back while their children develop into uncontrollable teenagers. If from birth and up to the age of 16, parents have to operate a 5-strike scheme where any incident involving the police or any other recognised authority occur, then the parents will receive notice of this, adding a strike to their parenting record. Once 5 strikes have been accumulated, then the parents are ordered to appear before the local magistrate or young offenders panel to discuss their child's behaviour and what efforts have been made to prevent unruly behaviour. In addition, they may seek assistance from the local authority if their attempts have been unsuccessful. Incidents which could contribute to the 5 strikes could be truancy, criminal damage, theft, robbery, carrying knives, underage drinking, antisocial behaviour, and so on. The magistrate or young offenders panel should have the power to order parents to attend parenting classes for the period deemed necessary in order to promote a more constructive and assertive attitude by the parents, in effect punishing parents for their children's bad behaviour, but more importantly making parents aware that they will be held responsible for disruptive and antisocial behaviour by their children. In addition, children will be aware that their actions could land their parents in hot water. 5 strikes and you're in, is the policy advocated by Daniel. Well, what do you think of that? Do you think the authorities should intervene earlier when children are clearly going off the rails, should we say? Should they intervene earlier, and should they be somewhat more draconian? Should they be saying to parents, look, these are your kids. It's not our job to make them behave. It's your job to make them behave. And if you don't make them behave, then we will assess that and see whether you're guilty of something criminal. And if you're not guilty of something criminal, just guilty of inability to parent, then we'll send you on parenting courses. It's an interesting thought. What do you say? How much responsibility should parents carry for the behaviour of their children? They say don't visit the sins of the father onto the son. But should we be visiting the sins of the son onto the father? Because that way round, there surely is a responsibility. If I misbehave as a child, then surely if that misbehaviour is allowed to continue, then it is my parents that are to blame. They weren't. They saw to it that I didn't misbehave again, or at least didn't get caught. What do you say? 0161 228 2255. Still with the Marks and Spencer's dreadful joke, we have Colin in Royton. Pound Stretcher and Marks and Spencer's have merged. It's going to be called Stretch Marks. Oh dear, dear, dear. Listen out for the chicken. 0161 228 2255. You got something to say? We'll listen.
Join me, Jack Deering, from 7 today for commentary on Sale Sharks against London Irish and a comprehensive roundup of all the week's sports news.
You'll be bang up to date with everything. Not that there's been a lot of sports news, has there? Not a lot been going on. Except in cricket, where there's been absolutely nothing going on. Other than a bit of rowing and striking and toys out of prams and stuff.
95.1 FM.
DAB Digital Radio.
And the World Wide Web.
This is Manchester.
BBC Radio Manchester.
At 1 o'clock, Israel continues attacks in Gaza, and Rhys Jones's killer could appeal against his sentence.
Stockport's game is off, but Bury and Sale are on.
Well, this afternoon should be mainly dry with some broken cloud. Isolated drizzle across the hills, but it's still chilly. Top temperatures 4 Celsius.
And lane 1 of the slips closed on the M60 clockwise at junction 5 Princess Parkway because of a broken down lorry.
Good afternoon, I'm Anna Dawson. The Palestinians say another 19 people have been killed in continuing attacks inside Gaza. The Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Olmert has described the UN resolution calling for an immediate end to the violence as unworkable. He said Palestinian organisations wouldn't comply with it. The ruling party in Gaza, Hamas, has also dismissed the call for a ceasefire. In the West Bank, people have been taking part in rallies in support of Gaza. Ali Makbul's been to mosques in Ramallah.
Well, thousands of people right across the West Bank are pouring out of mosques after Friday prayers to demonstrate and show their solidarity with the people of Gaza. Here, close to the centre of Ramallah, are thousands of people waving flags and shouting slogans against the Israeli government, but also calling for Palestinian unity. Now, many people here feel that their calls for an end to the violence in Gaza are not being heard by the outside world.
The first baby in the UK selected to be free of a genetic form of breast cancer has been born and is doing very well. The embryo was screened for a gene that would have meant the girl and future generations of her family would have a 50 to 85% chance of developing breast cancer. Paul Serhal from University College Hospital London says the screening's only available to certain patients, though.
They don't come to us just light-hearted. These patients have suffered emotionally and physically, and of course, let alone their own risk of developing cancer. So this procedure will be made available only when there's a very strong family history, and of course for those patients who carry the genetic abnormality.
The power failures on the West Coast main line between Manchester and London weren't due to the new rail timetable. An investigation by Network Rails found each of the 3 main problems on the line since the new year had a different cause. None were related to modernisation work completed last year. One train from London to Manchester was cancelled this morning after a signalling problem near Leighton Buzzard. It's reported that the killer of the Liverpool schoolboy Rhys Jones may consider appealing against his sentence. Sean Mercer was jailed for life last month for murdering the 11-year-old. The judge told him he must serve at least 22 years. Now it's reported that Mercer may consider appealing against the length of his minimum sentence. A man's been shot dead during an armed robbery in Worcestershire. Police say he was wounded in the chest during the raid near Bromsgrove and died shortly afterwards. A second man was shot in the leg and is in hospital. Police are hunting the gang who did it. Parents are again being urged to ensure their children have the MMR vaccine. The North West has the highest rate of measles in the country outside London, and there were a further 27 cases in November. The Bury-based sportswear chain JD Sports has today announced their sales figures have risen by 2.8% on last year. Profits are up too. It's got more than 400 stores across the country. And if riding upside down on a motorbike inside a metal cage is your kind of thing, then you might want to be in Manchester this weekend. The Extreme Stunt Show is part of the National Motorcycle Show, which is just open at Manchester Central. 2 of the stunt riders are husband and wife team Heidi and Mikko from Finland, and Heidi admits it's dangerous.
We are going to ride upside down, which means that we have to have speed like 50 miles per hour, and the T-forces are going over 5. Oh, when I was practicing by myself, just alone, I dropped down a couple of times. But I think you have to do those to learn to be careful and focus enough.
BBC Radio Manchester, Sports with Ian Cheeseman.
Stockport County's game at Swindon tomorrow has been called off due to a frozen pitch. It's been rescheduled for next Tuesday. Bury's home game against Barnet has been given the go-ahead after a morning inspection, but Oldham have an inspection planned during the afternoon. Portsmouth have brought in 8 hot air blowers to make sure tomorrow's visit of Manchester City goes ahead, despite predicted temperatures of -4 overnight. Pompey don't have undersoil heating. And while we're doing a weather check, Sale Sharks have confirmed that tonight's visit of London Irish will go ahead as planned. There's full commentary in Manchester Sports from 7. Birmingham City have agreed to sign Lee Boyer from West Ham on loan until the end of the season. Stockport midfielder Jason Taylor is joining Rotherham on a free transfer. Andy Murray plays Roger Federer today for a place in the final of the Qatar Open Tennis. And today's racing at Kelso is off. The card at Warwick tomorrow has been abandoned because of frost, and the meeting at Wetherby tomorrow is subject to an inspection.
That London Irish game against Sale, that'll be a cracker. London Irish are banging at them, isn't it?
BBC Radio Manchester, satellite weather with Heather Stocks.
Well, this afternoon it's generally a cloudy picture, and that cloud could be thick enough to bring us a little bit of drizzle across the hills. On the other hand, it'll thin here and there, and that'll be enough to bring us 1 or 2 bright spells, maybe even a sunny spell or 2 as we go through the day. It's a chilly day. We've got light winds and temperatures of 4 Celsius.
Allan Beswick with you on the phones. 0161 228 2255.
BBC Radio Manchester.
Anthony asks a question that I don't have the answer to. Why are your listeners linking the closures of Marks and Spencer's to that yummy lady's voice advertising... that yummy lady's advertising voice when they are, because of Parkinson, dribbling on about what him and his Mrs. Mary like for Christmas dinner? It's not even a sentence. I'll try again. Why are your listeners linking the closures to that yummy lady's advertising voice when they are, because of Parkinson, dribbling on about what him and his Mrs. Mary like for Christmas dinner? I don't know. How can I know why they're doing things? I'm not a spokesperson for them. They're many and varied. There's at least 10. And I can't work out what they're thinking. Can't work out what I'm thinking. Or even if I'm thinking sometimes. It's just the way it is. What's this? Oh, that's not funny. Please say thank you to all the staff at Radio Manchester for putting up with you for so long. Well, I'm happy to pass the message on, Neil in Bebington. What is it? Kick Beswick year? Is that what it is? Is that what we've decided now? 2009? You've heard of the year of the rat? Well, this is the year of the Kick Beswick. I don't know what a Kick Beswick is, but if the opportunity presents itself, give it a boot. And why not? I hear you say. 0161 228 2255. We were talking earlier, following that rather long email from Daniel about five strikes and you're in, as it were, which is a nice catchphrase, if naught else. And he was talking about children and crime. There's a story that I won't say rears its ugly head, but there's a story that breaks cover, if you like, in the news every so often. And today is such a day. Mary Bell. Now, people of a certain age will know exactly who I mean, but not everybody is as old as us. Child killer Mary Bell has become a grandmother. It emerged yesterday. Bell became notorious at the age of 11. That was 40 years ago, by the way. She became notorious at the age of 11 after being convicted of strangling 2 small boys, solely for the pleasure and excitement of killing. Now 51, the woman at the centre of one of the most sensational trials of the 20th century later won a court order giving her the right to anonymity for life. So we're not allowed to say, the newspapers, we, the BBC and other media outlets are not allowed to say her real name. We're not allowed to say that Mary Bell's new name is. We're not. We are allowed to use her name, Mary Bell. We are allowed to refer to her crime, but we cannot identify her or her whereabouts in any way. And I, for one, think that is exactly as it should be. The ruling is similar to those protecting the identities of Maxine Carr, girlfriend of Soham murderer Ian Huntley, and John Venables and Robert Thompson, who killed 2-year-old James Bulger, in 1993. Mary Bell is guilty of a heinous crime. She murdered 2 small boys solely for the pleasure and excitement of killing. She went to jail. She came out having done the requisite amount of time, and she was given a new identity, protected against revelation by the media. I don't know whether her husband or her children, or indeed anybody around her, know what her old life was. I don't know, and I don't care. Isn't Mary Bell living a peaceful life, marrying, having a child, and going on later to have a grandchild? Isn't that something we should celebrate? Shouldn't we be saying, well done, the system which is not perfect, indeed a long way from perfect, but is it not a fabulous commendation of our system that somebody 11 years of age doing something as wicked as that which she did, something, the act itself without doubt was an evil act, but isn't it something we congratulate the system for taking hold of an 11-year-old who can do that kind of thing and turning her into what is henceforth an innocent citizen? Isn't that exactly what the system is for? 0161 228 2255. I can tell you that the families of the 2 victims, they've not forgiven Bell, and frankly, you can understand why. She says, one of them says, she's now a 64-year-old lady, but she says, a child is a blessing. She took my blessing and left me with grief for the rest of my life. I hope she looks at this new child and remembers the 2 she murdered. I'll never see my grandchild from my son. I hope every time she looks at this baby, she realises what my family are missing out on because of what she has done. That's an understandable reaction. I've got no criticism of that lady at all. That's an understandable reaction. Mary Bell took her child, and she will never recover from that. She won't. Had Mary Bell gone to the gallows, which as an 11-year-old she was never going to, but had Mary Bell gone to the gallows, the woman would still never, ever recover from what happened. But again, I say, is it not an endorsement of our system that we can take hold of an 11-year-old girl who's committed a most heinous crime and turn her into a henceforth innocent citizen? We should congratulate ourselves, surely.
This is the Northwest's biggest sports station. This is BBC Radio Manchester.
Can Manchester City bounce back from their FA Cup nightmare? With full match commentary from Portsmouth as the Blues look for a repeat of that 6-0 thrashing earlier in the season.
It's Gelson Fernandez who puts in number 6.
Bolton will be hoping for an upset at the Emirates as they take on Arsenal.
Wonderful volley finish! Bolton are on the way!
Plus, we've got coverage of all our local league sides.
As Oldham have broken the deadlock, have drawn level. Derry have taken the lead.
Manchester Sports from 1 o'clock tomorrow. BBC Radio Manchester.
Yippee! Oh, we've got all sorts tomorrow. You got me early doors. Now, last Saturday between 6 and 7, we promised you Beswick in Beijing, and what you got was Beswick the jock. A very scary countenance. If you failed to get up in time, then good on you. You had a very near and close shave. Because we had a little technical... Oh, stop it. You know I'm always getting them. Look, I don't know how anything here works. I'm not sure how I do, or even if I do. And if I don't, I'm proud. Anyway, there was a little glitch, and this glitch meant that we couldn't Beijing you. So I've been all that way. I've been I've been, what is it, 7,000... I've travelled 7,000 miles in the dark, I'll have you know. And you're gonna damn well get Beswick in Beijing, whether you like it or not, he said, getting off his high horse because he's scared of heights. Yep, Beswick in Beijing, 6 till 7 tomorrow. Now, I'm reliably informed by those who do it, because it involves work, so it doesn't involve me, but I'm reliably informed by those who do it, there will be a further opportunity, I'm sick of it now, a further opportunity to, stop it, there'll be a further opportunity to hear Beswick in the silk market, being molested by a number of sales personnel. That's on tomorrow, amongst other Beijing bits, between 6 and 7. 7 till 8, I'm afraid you've got me drivelling on again. We're having a look at the big story of the week, and we'll also have a shufty at the week day by day. I feel Ronaldo may make an appearance, but obviously not in his Ferrari, hopefully. Anyway, so he'll be there, almost certainly. And whatever else has been going on, really. Can you smell gas, or is it Russian? I think you've no idea what'll be there, but it's the week, day by day. And then between 8 and 9, I can't keep up with these. 3 hours long. I know, 3 hours. Well, a person's expected to work 3 hours in just one day. It's extraordinary. Anyway, between 8 and 9, we'll have our coffee guests. No, not coffin guests, although you never know with this kind of weather. But we'll have our coffee guests. They'll be there, telling us everything they want to tell us. It's a free and easy moment when we just drink really bad coffee, but it's free. Gary in Failsworth, you may have stumbled upon a solution to the Gaza Strip crisis. Why not have them chuck chickens at each other instead of bombs? Besides being more productive than the present situation, it would give hours of endless fun to the likes of thee and me. Yeah, that would do it. Yeah, I can see that catching on. Not? Weird. What goes on in people's minds? Strange things. Hey, here's an idea. Now, this is in the paper today. And, again, I'm afraid it's the world following Beswick on his journey. It is. I have ideas, and I think this is a fantastic idea, and I mention it on here, and then a month later, it's in the paper, and they're claiming it. It's a scandal and an outrage. In any other world, it'd be called stealing. That's what it'd be. But the idea is that instead of having the bin man go to every house. Now, that's working on the assumption that the bin man... I know some of them are women, but I ain't ever seen one. When the bin man comes round, and you got all that palaver about have you put your bin the right way round, and is the lid just a little bit open, and all the rest of it. And you just think, what a rigmarole, isn't it? A rigmarole. And they're making all kinds of flaming rules and regulations. It's a nightmare. Well, on the continent... in various... I can't say I've not been in every... Actually, I think I have been in every country on the continent. Well, it depends where the continent ends, really, doesn't it? But I've been in all the original European countries. You know, by that EU country. I've been in all of them. Germany. Oh, no. No, I'm not. But most... I don't care. Anyway, and most of the countries on the continent, they don't have bins at every house, or even bin bags. They don't. They just have one dirty great big bin, or even 3 or 4 dirty great big bins in every couple of streets. And on your way to work in the morning, or taking the kids to school or whatever, you take your cart in a carrier bag. Now, this is going to fall apart, because all the skinny flint shops are doing away with carrier bags. So I think it's cobblers, but anyway. So you wander along with your carrier bag, and you lob it in the big bin. And they're divided. They have big bins just for General Clark. And no, that's not an officer in the army. General Clark. No, stop it. They have big bins for General Clark, and then they have big bins for bottles. They're called bottle bins. Not in Germany, they're called bins, obviously. But it's a good idea. It's a belting up. Doorstep rubbish collections are being scrapped, with families being required instead to use huge communal bins in a scheme that might be introduced across the country. Brighton and Hove City Council will begin installing 3,200-litre communal bins in 500 streets next week, one for every 40 homes. I don't know how much 3,200 litres is, but it sounds like a lot of space. And then For the residents, the bins will be 150 yards away. Once the scheme's ready, dustmen will no longer remove black sacks from outside homes. Now that strikes me, unless it's your house it's outside, that strikes me as being eminently sensible. Where's the problem with that? Yes, we've got used to. They actually, in the Times, they list the history of rubbish collection. I know, it's brilliant. 1297. Nearly 1300. 1297. The law requires householders to keep the front of the house clear of refuse. You got to keep it, you got to keep it clear. See? 1354. Rakers are employed in each London ward to rake rubbish together and remove it once a week. There's a Dickensian tale, a Charles Dickens tale about people who lived on a muck heap. Is that Donkin and Son? Oh, I should have concentrated on that O level. Anyway, there is one, and I've forgotten it now. 1407, household rubbish required to be kept indoors until removed by the rakers. 1408, removal order by Henry IV says forfeits will be paid if the refuse is not removed. 1848, Public Health Act gives councils the power to provide dustbins. 1875, Public Health Act again makes it a council's duty to arrange the removal and disposal of waste. 1922, the first petrol-powered... Oh, I've missed one. 1914, we were busy fighting the Germans, but we also bothered dustbins introduced by many councils because the bins are heavy. Backdoor collection is common. 1922, the first petrol-powered refuse vehicle was used. 1936, another Public Health Act gives councils new powers on collection of rubbish. 1977, bottle banks are introduced, and it all started to fall apart then, didn't it? I like the idea of a dirty, great big bin at the end of the road. If I lived at the end of the road, I grant you I'd have an entirely different view of it. Just gone 1:20 on BBC Radio Manchester. News headlines. Anna Dawson.
The Palestinians say another 19 people have been killed in continuing attacks inside Gaza. Israel and Hamas have rejected a plan by the UN Security Council to stop the fighting there. It's reported that the killer of Liverpool schoolboy Rhys Jones may consider appealing against his sentence. Sean Mercer was jailed for life last month for murdering the 11-year-old. And the first baby in the UK, selected to be free of a genetic form of breast cancer, has been born and is doing very well. Manchester's weather cloudy with the odd bright spell. Highs today of 4 Celsius.
BBC Radio Manchester 2020 traffic.
Well, a couple of problems on the roads around Manchester. If you're using the M60 clockwise, lane 1, that's the inside lane on the entry slip, has been closed off at junction 5 on the clockwise M60. That's Princess Parkway. Matrix signs are set to 50 miles per hour. Once again, a broken down lorry that's stuck at the end of the slip road. In Salford, the A6 Crescent there, outbound's closed off because of a multi-vehicle accident that's happened between Adelphi Street and Hume Place. So it's closed heading towards the M61 due to that accident involving 4 vehicles near to the old Pint Pot pub, so do take care around that area too. Still foggy on the tops on the M62 over the Pennines, around 22 at Rishworth Moor, and if you can update me, then the number's 01612 244 4951. I'm Cara Banks.
2020 traffic means you get an update every 20 minutes through the day.
Some news just in. The Israeli Prime Minister has rejected a UN resolution calling for an immediate and durable ceasefire. Ehud Olmert said that the resolution was unworkable and would not be adhered to. Hamas has also rejected the UN call for a ceasefire. I tell you that merely because I'm about to read out an email that some people will find perhaps a little strident. We often hear, says David, we often hear the remark that we, the UK, are thought of as the 51st state of the United States. If any state has that dubious title, it surely is the state of Israel. They receive $2 billion a year for economic aid, and a further $2 billion in military aid from Uncle Sam. Israel, who may well just have their own seat on the United Nations Security Council, would like to have a peace settlement, but not yet, as there are still too many women and children in Gaza. 0161 228 22 855. Ray in Bellevue. Hiya, Ray.
Hi, Alan. Good afternoon to you.
It is. What can we do for you?
Well, I was reading my newspaper today, today's edition of the New Worker. It's the paper of the New Communist Party, and there's quite a big report about the National Union of Mine Workers. They're planning a series of events to mark the 25th anniversary of the strike of 84 and 85. And I thought, well, I just thought I'd mention it, because I thought it might be of interest to you and people. Now, you see, it was a massive strike. You see, there's a lot of people who don't know much about it now. They've been born since. But it was a massive strike, and it had the support of over 200,000 miners and their families, and community groups came together, and some Labour councils. But the TUC and the Labour Party leadership at that time, they failed to support the strike. You see, and well, I think that was. I think there might have been victory if they'd intervened, in my opinion.
Well, in the second one, the second strike, and to a certain extent the first, wasn't there some problem in that Arthur Scargill, the then leader, wouldn't denounce violence carried out by miners, and the Labour Party said, well, until you do denounce that violence, we will not support you. And Scargill denounced, he used the clever phrase that politicians, and Scargill's a politician as much as anybody, Scargill used the phrase, I denounce all violence, but he wouldn't denounce the miners' violence on the picket lines. He denounced the police, and he denounced violence in general, but he wouldn't denounce miners' violence.
Yes, that's a good point, Alan. That's made me think. But yes, I do remember on the news bulletins the running battles, and it wasn't very nice. But there was a hell of a lot of provocation, you know. You know, the police, they were running through houses in the villages, and I've been told by a friend from the northeast, the police were waving the wage packets at the miners.
Yeah, they were, yeah.
Yes, and but now there's going to be a number of events planned by the National Union of Mine Workers, the NUM, this year, and there's going the planning a play, and it's called Marching to the Fault Line.
Yeah.
And it's about Maggie Thatcher, the death of Maggie Thatcher, and how it'll be received in the north. I don't think there'll be many shedding a tear for it. Do you, Alan?
I suspect there won't be many mining communities that shed a tear for Michael Heseltine or indeed Margaret Thatcher on their demise, but I regret the fact that they won't either be, should we say, critical of their leader at the time, Arthur Scargill, because he led them into 2 strikes and they lost both.
Yes. There was a lot of opposition, though, from the police.
Well, there was a lot of opposition.
And the television, I know it reported on the violence, but no, I mean, there was a Tory government.
But Ray, there was a man from round here who led a miners' strike, and they won hands down. And they won hands down, some would say, because of the way he operated it. I refer, of course, to the great Joe Gormley. Born and brought up in Ashton in Makerfield, worked in the pits, actually went down the hole in the ground and hewed coal, and eventually became the leader of the National Union of Mine Workers, and led it with an inner strength that spoke of the miners' right to a decent living wage, and not the other kind of position that Arthur Scargill took. I mean, Arthur Scargill led them into 2 major, debilitating and some would say crucified all of their jobs, but led them into 2 debilitating strikes, which they lost.
Yes, but look at the results now, Alan. We've still got 50% of our electricity generated by coal.
Imported coal, yes.
You know, 43 million. We still This is the words of the Union President today, Ian Lavery.
Yeah.
He says now that the UK still produces 50% of its electricity from coal, yet we are importing 43 million tonnes of coal, equivalent to keeping 43 pits.
But you see, the miners, and I've made programmes about miners, and I've got a great deal of respect for miners, but the miners argue that the government damaged the coal industry. But frankly, I think the National Union of Mine Workers, and particularly Arthur Scargill, has as much to blame, is as much to blame. He wouldn't hold a ballot, if you remember, Ray.
I told you at the beginning of the conversation, over 200,000 were out. And the thing was...
But he wouldn't hold a ballot, don't you remember, Ray?
Yes, that's
He
true.
wouldn't hold a ballot. He would not say to his members, do you want to be on strike this time? He claimed, and many people agreed with him, to be fair, but he claimed that the ballot they'd held, I think it was 18 months before, but some considerable time before, was still valid. And all he'd had to do was hold a ballot. If he held a ballot, a relevant one, if he held a ballot and the result was come out on strike, I think they would have won.
Yes.
But he wouldn't hold that ballot. Why?
Yes. But, you know, Alan, I did see a BBC programme, it was BBC 2 if I'm not mistaken, or about 2001, 2 or 3, I can't remember which year, and he did say that Joe Gormley, he's deceased now, I would say he's dead, isn't he?
He is, yeah.
Yes. It said that Joe Gormley worked for the special branch, you know.
Well, I mean, you can make those, not you, but television programmes can make all the allegations they want about Joe Gormley, but the one thing he did that Scargill didn't do was he took on the government and he won. And the reason he took on the government and he won, well, the reason he took on the government was because he didn't agree with what they were doing. But the reason he won was because he spoke on behalf of his members with a mandate from his members. But without the ballot, the right-wing press, and let's face it, the press in this country is predominantly right-wing, as a New Worker reader, you'll agree with that, Ray. The problem was that he walked into the trap set by the right-wing press because they said, this is not Arthur Scargill representing the miners against the government. This is Arthur Scargill representing himself against the government without the mandate of his members. And he got beat.
Well, I know, but...
Twice.
I just say, Alan, the only way I could support the strike, well, I was in engineering. I'm not coming to speak about myself, but I took some non-perishable food to the Communist Party of Great Britain headquarters, but that's the only way I could support the strike. But I hope it helps the miners anyhow.
Well, no, we didn't all, but lots of us did things to raise money for the miners. I held miners, and still do hold miners, in very, very high regard.
Yes.
I don't have the same regard for their union under the leadership of Arthur Scargill. A story that's come out just recently, and I'll bet you'll be aware of it, because I'm sure it was covered in your newspapers, the story of the solicitors who've been disbarred because they took an awful lot of money off the miners in compensation scheme claims.
Oh, yes, I remember that.
And they took millions off the miners.
That was last year, wasn't it?
It was indeed, and at the back end of last year they were disbarred. But what wasn't reported, and I'm surprised at this, what wasn't reported as emphatically as their disbarment was the fact that they paid the National Union of Mine Workers millions of pounds.
Oh, I didn't know.
Ah, well, you see, they were, if you like, working a commission. So the NUM were I'm not suggesting that the MUM were complicit in this, but the NUM made money out of those cases, despite the fact that the government was paying all the bills. Now, that's something that's not been massively reported, but it is out there. Anyway, Ray, 25 years since the first of the big strikes, the first, what you might call Thatcher strikes. The miners lost, they went back to work, they say, marching to their brass bands with their heads held high. But wherever you sat, it looked like a loser's march. Good on you, Ray.
OK, Alan.
Cheers, mate. Ray in Bellevue, who supported the miners during the strike. Where were you during those two strikes? What did you do? What side were you on? Because the whole nation took sides. I can recall... And it was probably... The first miners' strike, 1984, was probably the beginning of the end of respect for the police. Now, the police have always got a kick in hither and thither, but I think it was possibly the beginning of the end of universal respect for the police. It used to be the constabulary, Her Majesty's Constabulary, the local bobbies, are people of honour, people who have no side. They're on the side of good against bad. That's what they do. Their job is to protect us all. It's still the same job. Their job is to protect us all from the wicked. Their job is to catch the wicked, take them before the courts, and let the courts do what the courts will. And they were universally respected, and not just in this country. They were respected from all around the world. When a policeman said, "Don't do that, sonny," you didn't do it. When a policeman took you to your home and told your parents you'd been naughty, you got in trouble. They didn't say the policeman's lying. They didn't say, "What are you doing touching my son or my daughter?" They didn't say any of that because they held the police in respect. Well, there are those that say, and I don't mean me, I mean historians, social historians and the like, they say that because the government of the day chose to use the police, they have no other force with which to do it, but they chose to use the police to confront the miners. Because they used the police in that way, many working people, and working people are the majority of our society by far, many working people said the police are just an instrument of government, and at the moment, and I mean then, and at the moment, are being used against the working man. That was a sensation that was abroad at the time. I can recall attempting to get to the port on the east coast, wanting to go across to Zeebrugge. And I'm just driving over there. I was going on the ferry. And I was stopped 4 times on that journey, 4 times, by police officers who were concerned that I might be going to join a picket line, a flying picket. And they said, "Where are you going?" And I said, "I'm going to Lowestoft to catch a ferry." And they said, "Have you got your ticket?" And I remember, because I was going on holiday, I remember saying, "Well, here's the ticket," because I didn't want to miss the boat. But I also remember thinking, you've got no right to ask me that. You've got absolutely no right to ask me that. The police of this land do not have the power to stop us going about our lawful business just because the government of the day is having a row with a trade union. They didn't then, they don't now, and I think, and many, many social historians think, that that did serious damage to the reputation of our police force, and therefore serious damage to our society, because love 'em or hate 'em, and I have a lot of respect for 'em, but love 'em or hate 'em, we've got the police force we've got, and we need them. They do fantastic work. I come to work in an air-conditioned office with coffee laid on and comfort, and just sit here for a reasonable amount of money. Police officers, every time they go about their duty, they are so much at risk of getting stabbed that they have to wear protection against it. Would you believe that? The most protection I have is this thing where I plug in my earphones. It has a little gadget on it that stops my ears getting damaged if the volume goes too high. That's it. That's how much risk I'm at. A police officer going about his job every day, or her job every day, risks injury to life and limb. They risk death. They do it for a variety of reasons. They do it for the money. They do it for the pension. They do it because they think they look good in blue. They do it because they get to drive cars quickly through traffic, making a loud noise with blue lights. They do it for 1,000 reasons. They do it because it's dead tough. They do it because they're dead hard. They do it because they're too thick to do anything else. They do it because they're extremely clever. They do it for money. But most of all, they do it because they actually think it's worth doing. They are there as our protectors, and you and me should be proud of them and supportive of them. But it got a lot harder to do that after the 1984 miners' strike. What do you say? Where were you when the strike was on? What side were you on? Were you on the side that said we had to break the unions? David Cameron sat opposite me earlier this week and said, well, we had to break the unions' stranglehold on our society. He sat opposite me this week and said that. It's a quarter of a century later, and he said that. I've no idea what the current Labour Party says of the same incident, but I don't see them rushing to give strength back to the unions, do you? Just gone 20 to 2 on BBC Radio Manchester. News headlines, Richard Stead.
Israel and Hamas have both rejected demands for a ceasefire in Gaza. The UN Security Council is demanding a full withdrawal from the territory. Parents are again being urged to ensure their children have the MMR vaccine. There are further 27 cases of measles in the northwest during November. And manufacturing output's fallen faster than at any time since 1981. Output in November was down by nearly 7.5%, compared with the same month in 2007. Manchester's weather, cloudy with rain possible in Pennine areas, otherwise dry with highs of 4 Celsius.
BBC Radio Manchester, 2020 traffic.
Well, the inside lane still closed off on the M60 clockwise on the entry slip because of a broken down lorry right at the end of the slip road. That's on the M60 clockwise, junction 5, Princess Parkway, but traffic seems to be coping well for the time being. In Salford, the A6, the Crescent outbound, I'm afraid still looking fairly delayed. The roads had to be closed off around Adelphi Street through to Hume Place on the outbound stretch because of an accident involving 4 vehicles, so it's closed heading towards the M61. And Hume Street in Manchester is still closed whilst long-term roadworks continue between Oxford Road and Misha Mews. And don't forget, if you can update me, it's 0161244 4951. I'm Cara Banks.
BBC Radio Manchester Sports.
Stockport County's game at Swindon tomorrow has been called off due to a frozen pitch. It's been rescheduled for next Tuesday. Bury's home game against Barnet has been given the go-ahead, though, after a morning inspection. Oldham have an inspection planned later this afternoon. Portsmouth have brought in 8 hot air blowers to make sure tomorrow's visit to Manchester City goes ahead, despite predicted temperatures of -4 overnight. Pompey don't have undersoil heating. Portsmouth, though, are confident that game will go ahead. The Blackburn boss, Sam Allardyce, says it will take an offer that blows them out of the water to get Rocky Santa Cruz. Speaking yesterday, Mark Hughes warned he won't be held to financial ransom.
There's a perception that we will go into the market and pay whatever it takes. I think we've proved in the past that with certain targets that we won't do that. We understand January, there's always a premium on players in January. We have to accept there will be a premium on any deal that Manchester City are involved in. So we may well have to pay a little bit more than the market value, but not significantly more, as I've said in recent weeks.
Rio Ferdinand is fit to return to the Manchester United side for Sunday's visit of Chelsea. He's been back in training this week after missing 4 games through back spasms. Patrice Evra should line up alongside Ferdinand, having missed the same games through suspension, and Cristiano Ronaldo is fit to play despite yesterday's car crash close to Manchester Airport. Midfielder Darren Fletcher says the title race will feature 3 clubs, United, Chelsea and Liverpool, and will run right till the end of the season, with Liverpool maintaining their fight until May.
Although they've not been in the position for a while, they're showing great strengths of being in that position. I think there'll be 3 of us towards the end of the season. And I think it'll be maybe even tighter than last year. I think it's going to go down to the wire, these three teams, and we're preparing for that.
Rotherham United have signed Stockport midfielder Jason Taylor on a free transfer. He signed a 2.5-year contract, while striker Martin Gritton has left Macclesfield to join League Two rivals Chesterfield. The 30-year-old, who joined the Siltmen in 2007 and scored 16 goals in 56 games, has signed a 2.5-year contract at Saltergate and, of course, scored against Chesterfield over there at Saltergate not too long ago. Nationally, the Chelsea manager Luis Philippe Scolari has told Tottenham to forget about signing the England midfielder Joe Cole, while Spurs have completed the signing of Jermaine Defoe from Portsmouth. Pompey themselves have kept defender Glenn Johnson a little longer. He signed a new 4.5-year contract, and Birmingham City are set to sign Lee Boyer on loan from West Ham until the end of the season. Good news if you're a Sale Sharks fan. Tonight's game against London Irish has been given the go-ahead. We've got full match commentary in Manchester Sports from 7 this evening. Andrew Strauss is expected to find out today whether he'll be appointed England's new one-day captain. He, of course, replaced Kevin Peterson as skipper of the Test side yesterday. And defending champion Andy Murray, of course, for his 4th win in a row over Roger Federer when they meet in the semi-finals of the Qatar Open Tennis.
The next live action on the Northwest's biggest sports station.
It's full match commentary as Sale Sharks welcome league leaders London Irish to Edgeley Park. All the build-up and, of course, commentary from 7 in Manchester Sports.
BBC Radio Manchester.
Steve Wiggins says via text, Gargill only made one mistake. He didn't give the miners the vote. You just said it. He would have won. And as he just said, exactly so. And it'll be the best day of my life when Maggie Thatcher dies. I'll dance on the grave for the rest of my life. And then he says something which I'm not even going to read out. I won't dance on a grave. She was a leader who believed in something and said, look, this is what I believe. Vote for me or don't for me. Now, that's the choice we all have. I rather prefer politicians who say, this is what I believe, take it or leave it, than these lot we have now in all parties who say, what would you like me to believe? Those I can't bear. All that focus group politics, God almighty, what tripe it is. What utter tripe. Whatever happened to people who said, this is me, I believe this, now you do what you're going to do. Never understood the term, says Steve. The union has too much power over the Labour Party. The Labour Party wouldn't exist were it not for the union. Yeah, you may be right in that. Ken in Ratcliffe. Hi, Ken.
Hello, Alan.
What have you got?
A couple of things, if you'll give me permission to
Please
say.
do.
First thing, I'm a bit disappointed with you on when you was trying to cross-examine what's his name? Leader of the opposition.
David Cameron wasn't cross-examining, but examining, but go on.
Well, I was disappointed the way you let him off the hook, if you ever got him on it. You were talking to the Antichrist. For one of the things he had to get a dig in was trade unions, so powerful. If the trade unions were so powerful, how come the people they represented were on such bad wages? Why? If they were that powerful, why were they getting such bad wages compared to other people for the skills that they had to have? That's what I can't understand. But no, you didn't get into him. And again, he brought up trade unions, and you didn't at all defend it. You were laughing and giggling. Yes, Mr. Cameron, no, Mr. Cameron.
It's not my job to defend the trade union movement, and I'm not altogether sure there would have been much point in talking to a man who was all but a child in 1984 about the policies of his predecessor. I pointed out that he would be uncomfortable talking about that particular bit of past, but I don't honestly see there would be much point in going over old ground.
Well, I think there is, for the simple reason you've said it on your programme time and time again, and I've supported you all the time on this. I support you that much. I've actually gone out and bought a £50 radio so I can hear your programme.
Good heavens, well done you.
That's how much I have for your programme.
But Ken,
anyway, let me get this.
Well, let me just respond. It's surely more important to find out, in the limited time available, to find out what David Cameron is going to offer to the electorate at the next election rather than to talk to him about something that happened outside of his control a quarter of a century ago.
Well, his policies and his party represent the same things as they did.
Well, that's your... Ken,
it's true, isn't it?
Ken, that's your point of view, and you're entitled to it, but not everybody brings along a knowledge to the issue, and it's my job to find out on your behalf and everybody else's behalf what David Cameron and his party offer to the electorate at the next election, not the one from quarter of a century ago.
Well, he didn't offer anything when you was...
Well, that's for you... But
well, you know that.
But you would...
Come on.
But Ken, my job is not to sit here and tell you what I know. My job when interviewing somebody like him or Alan Johnson the following day, my job is to find out what they've got to say, because I promise you I won't be standing at the next election, but my guess is that each of they will.
Well, you gave Alan Johnson a good scene too, didn't you? Hey? But you didn't with Mr.
Well, Alan
Cameron.
Johnson... well, you must... Alan Johnson has implemented policies. David Cameron, in political terms, has so far done nothing because he's not been in power. When people... well, that's your decision. But when a minister says, this is what I have done... I've got a lot more to go on than when a bloke says, well, I think I might do this.
Right.
Anyway, go on.
Well, the next thing is you're on about Arthur Scargill.
Yeah.
And I've got more time for him than quite a few people. I thought he was brilliant. But I think I'm right on saying this, that Maggie Thatcher moved the goalposts that many times with the miners' strike, that Arthur Scargill, if I remember, and there'll be people who are listening, that he was in a position that if he'd have had a vote, they could have prosecuted him and the miners, and he couldn't call a meeting, couldn't call a ballot, because there were certain rules and regulations that he would have actually been affected by. So he couldn't call it. Now, Arthur Scargill, all right, he lost, unfortunately.
Twice.
He lost, unfortunately, he lost. And one of the major reasons why he lost, that there was another area of the coal mining industry that actually fought him.
Nottingham.
And what did they do? They listened to the Maggie Thatchers, and we're going to give you this.
Well,
and after they broke the strike, Maggie Thatcher and her cretins, what if we don't mind pinching a word off you?
Go on.
What did they do? They got rid of them as well. And one of the leaders turned around and said, "Oh, sorry, Arthur, we should have listened to you."
Well, maybe they should, and all of that may be so, but the idea that Arthur Scargill couldn't hold a ballot, frankly, is fallacious. I think the thing that you're referring to...
Is that sexual, that?
No, unfortunately not, perhaps. It means it's unfounded. But the thing that you're probably referring to is and was sequestration. Is that what you're referring to when the assets of the union, the National Union of Mine Workers, could have been removed from them? They could have been taken from them by a court, and thus rendering them effectively bankrupt. But all of that...
I think you're right, mate.
All of that happened whilst the strike was underway, and it happened because the authorities of the day believed that the strike was being operated illegally, flying pickets and things like that. Now, I've no objection to flying pickets or any of the others, but that's the belief of the authorities at the time. But prior to all that, and many a mine worker now says this, prior to all that, the decision to not have a ballot was fatal to his cause. Now, you can make all the arguments you like. You and me and social historians can discuss forever whether he should have done or shouldn't have done in the climate of the time. But his failure to do so is what did for him, and also is what led to the creation in Nottingham.
That's not entirely right, is it?
Okay, nothing's entirely right, but it's pretty damn close.
Well, yeah, but the point is, where does he put Arthur Scargill in a position where all the money that they've collected for paying out this, that and the other to the miners, and the courts under the leadership of Maggie Thatcher, that evil so-and-so, where does that leave him? What does he say? I don't call a ballot. If I do, and we could lose all this money we've collected.
Ken,
where does it leave him?
Had he called a ballot prior to the strike, immediately prior to the strike, saying, do you want to go on strike as a result of where we are now or not? Had he called that ballot, it may well be that in all that followed, the opportunity for sequestration came about, and we all remember the undignified but necessary movement of funds all around the world. They moved funds out of banks in the United Kingdom to banks all over the world to protect it, and I would have done the same. But his...
Oh, you mean like these bankers, these multi-millionaires?
Well, that's what they do.
Like they do.
But Scargill was supposed to be above all that, but that's what he ended up having to do, to protect it against the government. But you've still... But Ken, you've still got to come back to, would he have been better, or would it have been better for him to be able to say to the government of the day, to the Labour Party of the day, to the people at large, and even to the right-wing press, we are on strike because my members told me to go on strike.
Right,
and he wasn't able to say that.
Right, Alan, now, we're talking about the miners. Oh, I think it was round about 1922, 22 or 26, when they called the Depression.
Yeah.
And it wasn't. It was the miners' strike. The miners went on strike. And why did they go on strike? Because the Tory government of the day turned round and said, hey, we're cutting your wages by half. They said, you can't do that. And the Tory government said, we've done it. So my unit, the AU, because I'm an engineer by trade.
Yeah, you said.
So we said, our leadership said, no, you can't do that. We're coming out and supporting them. So the Tory government, again, that evil bunch of cretins, turned around and said, hey, we've cut your wages by half. Ain't that fantastic? And then you had the outbreak of the war. The miners had an agreement with the government that they'd get a pay increase. Anyway, Winston Churchill, he should have been buried with Hitler and Mussolini and the rest of them. And what did he do? He said, you're not getting it, end of story, and if you don't do as you're told, we're locking you up, you're going to jail. And this leader, which I can't remember, the leader of the miners said, well, who's going to dig your coal out if you put us all in jail? Winston Churchill said,
I don't know.
I don't know.
Good on you, Ken. Cheers, mate. Have a good day. You may be interested to know, if you're of a certain age, that the 60s pop star Dave D, you remember Dave D, Dozy, Beaky, Mick and Titch? He's died today after the 3-year battle with cancer. 01612282255 to book a call for tomorrow. We could very quickly talk to John in Wigan. Are you, John?
Afternoon, Alan. What about all these miners who are living in Benidorm now who'd have been dead? All right, Alan.
There's some truth in that, hurrah, mate. All the miners now living in Benidorm would have been dead, presumably because they would have died in a pitfall or something equally ghastly. Why anybody ever did that job, I really do not know. It took more neck than I've got.
Your Sunday morning lie-in with Mike Shaft.
What happened in that jail to make the torture stop when the cards arrived?
It's just that there are people that care. There are people who are aware of your case. You are not alone, and you can support them.
Mike Shaft.
Did you have to spend some time defining what religion is?
Religion is not just, the big six religions, Hinduism, Sikhism, Judaism, and so on. Religion, therefore, involves almost a range of things, rituals, beliefs, cults, denominations, and that's what we try and reflect.
Manchester's faith, spirit, and life's difficult questions with Mike Shaft.
It's just a nonsense.
Sunday morning from 7 on BBC Radio Manchester.
A very good day to you. How are you? Hi, Alan. I don't think the police can restrict people going about their lawful business. See Section 28. I sided with the miners at the time, but I was young. I now believe the unions needed breaking, especially as most unions whittle in the same pot as management. That's interesting. The miners needed braking because they were too weak. I've not heard that one before, but nonetheless, it's not a bad one. 0161 228 2255. Kevin, I know nothing of unions, but in the early 70s, I was an apprentice motor mechanic. I remember the car manufacturers taking turns to strike. Is it any coincidence that the industries with the strongest unions back then are now almost non-existent? I remember in Skelmersdale, where I was living at the time, that the Thorn EMI colour tube manufacturers, about 2,000 of them, marched through Skelmersdale over the right to strike. And they fought and retained the right to strike. And about 2 years later, they were fighting for the right to work. What's the connection? See you tomorrow. Ta-da!
You can hear full match commentary of City